Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Today in Manufacturing podcast. With me this week are Jeff Reinke and Anna Wells. We're the editors of Manufacturing.net and Industrial Equipment News, and we each have more than 20 years of experience covering the manufacturing industry. Each week, we take the 5 biggest stories on our websites and discuss the implications they have on the manufacturing industry moving forward. Before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also help us out a lot by giving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use, even a simple thumbs up on YouTube if you're on there right now. Finally, if you want to email the podcast, you can reach any of us at Jeff, Anna, or David at IN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You can also subscribe to our daily newsletter. Make sure you get it delivered to your inbox first, and subscribe to us on YouTube at IN Magazine so you can get a notification whenever we go live every Thursday. Anna, welcome back. How you doing this week?
Thanks. Great. I made the mistake, though, of taking my vacation a week before a very heavy deadline, big project this week.
Yeah.
So all of the benefits of my week off have already evaporated.
Well, it was great because
already up here.
Yeah, because you jump in and you already got to do twice as much work because you were off for a week, right? Just getting caught up. And then it is the biggest project of the year for you. And I'm sure that added little to no work to your plate.
Yeah, it was my own fault. I should have looked at the calendar, but.
Well, it was, trying to schedule some things with you and looking at your calendar, I'm just whoa, glad I'm not Anna this week. Just a lot of red. So much red. Jeff, how you doing this week?
Pretty good, David.
Yeah?
Can't complain.
Hey.
I didn't have a big project. So I'm okay.
That's fine. Comparatively, really chill.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, that's good too. It's going to, there's the yin and the yang already there energy-wise. I'm feeling really zen about it.
Okay. We'll just run with that.
Yeah, we'll run with that. We'll hold hands later. All right. Now a word from our sponsor. This week's episode is brought to you by Hexagon. Quickly addressing and eliminating known problems in your facility can save you from a damaged reputation, fines, or even an unplanned shutdown. One of the most effective ways to resolve an issue is by identifying its root cause, which is achieved by conducting a root cause analysis. However, it's essential to note that a root cause analysis done incorrectly can waste considerable time and resources. A new paper from Hexagon, 6 Mistakes Manufacturers Make When Trying to Fix an Issue, gives you 6 common yet critical mistakes to avoid. So download it right now. There's a link to it in the body copy as well as the live chat, our first story this week. High-value manufacturing purchases undergoing rapid transformation. Industrial Equipment News recently partnered with B2B manufacturing marketing agency RH Blake to conduct a study on the B2B buyer's journey. We interviewed more than 250 manufacturing executives and managers involved in making purchasing decisions, specifically on offerings with long sales cycles. RH Blake took these results and compiled them, providing insightful analysis in a new report. B2B Manufacturing Buyer Journey Study, Insights for Marketers in an Evolving Landscape. It's all there. The landscape for complex, high-value B2B manufacturing purchases is undergoing a rapid transformation. Now, while the entire report is available for free, some of the key findings from the study include 85% of manufacturing executives and managers conduct preliminary research on vendor or supplier websites before making high-value purchases. 33% say vendors often lack sufficient technical depth and clear product differentiation. 64% of buyers actively seek independent, objective information on sources like trade publications, and trust in AI-generated information remains low. Jeff, were you surprised to see the report reach the top 5 this week?
I think it makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of volatility in terms of purchasing and supply chain management right now, so very timely. And a lot of this information really hit home. The one thing you called out also really got my attention with that a third of them basically saying that the vendors are lacking that technical depth and understanding of different products.
Yeah.
That was really surprising. And I think it also it should be very enlightening to a lot of manufacturers out there in terms of how they can improve their sales, their go-to-market strategy. This goes back to when we were first getting involved in B2B media. One of the founders of this company always talked about critical issues and what keeps you up at night and how to really sell all of that type of stuff. this comes through here. And if this is an issue that manufacturers are seeing from their distributors, from their sellers, it also feels like this is an easier fix, because throughout this whole study, it was just this intense desire to learn more about the products that are out there, more about the different solutions that can be applied to an enterprise, and just dealing with all of this stuff that's going on right now.
Yeah.
So that one really hit home to me. The other one that really caught my attention was within the study when they talked about the question was, what most often triggers the start of a significant purchasing process at your company? And way down towards the bottom at 17%, and they could put as many answers to this question as they wanted, was safety/risk management concerns.
Yeah.
For that to be that low was sort of surprising, but more concerning, I think.
Yeah.
Now, one of the second most, the response getting the second most responses was regulatory compliance. So maybe they kind of put safety in that, in regulatory, but still definitely a different bucket to put a lot of those purchasing decisions into. Thinking about safety that lower down on the totem pole, in foreshadowing another story we're going to have later on, was concerning to me. Also, when you look at risk management, that goes beyond just the plant floor and into so many different parts of the enterprise. When you look at risk management, cybersecurity being one of them that we talked about a lot last week and that I work with quite a bit, not understanding or not appreciating the type of investment that needs to be made there. That really was eye-opening to me, and really maybe shines a light on some of the bigger concerns that manufacturers are dealing with right now in not looking at risk the way that they should. I know it's difficult because there's so much stuff day to day that you're focused on with new technologies and things that are coming out, but also that bigger picture needs to be kept in mind as well. So that was a couple of things that kind of stood out to me.
Well, I like to hear it. Well, it sounds like they want to do as much of their own research as they can, really, before they kind of initiate the process. But they also want good information, and they're kind of really skeptical and a little bit more discerning than I thought, people were as to where they were getting the information from.
Yeah, the stuff with AI, and I think Anne's maybe talking that a little bit, that was surprising to me, but also in a good way.
Yeah.
People that where they weren't just like, ChatGPT answer, and here we go.
Yeah. Where should I buy my next piece of $500,000 equipment? And ChatGPT says this place. And Anna, I guess you just got to hit buy now, right?
Yeah, that's what you do with AI. You just hit buy now.
Yeah, you take a picture of what you need, throw it into ChatGPT, and it spits out a buy now.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I was pleased to see that people were not really falling for that at this point. Mm-hmm. But what was alarming to me, I think, was this 85% number. Maybe alarming is not the right word, but when you consider that 85% of people that are buying are conducting preliminary research before they're talking to a company salesperson, for example. To me, if you're a seller or a marketer, that's very intimidating information because the narrative around what your product does and its benefits and value and ROI is maybe being built somewhere else. Maybe you're not even involved in that narrative. Maybe they're making up their mind before they talk to you, and you don't even know that you got excluded from that decision-making process because you were not somewhere where they were. Mm-hmm. So I think it does put some pressure on those marketers and those sellers to kind of be omnipresent with that brand visibility. Are they on the trade publications? Are they findable on search engines? Is their SEO good? Because we know from so much experience in this industry how many brands have a really terrible online presence. And you look them up and they have a shady, outdated website, or they have no subject matter experts to speak of out in that have brand visibility and people know them out in the industry.
Yeah, they're not known thought leaders.
They're not there.
Yeah.
And if you're not there, then people may be discounting you and you don't even know that is happening.
Yeah.
So I think that was a key takeaway for me, is just companies really need to be on guard, and they need to be looking at are we really putting our brand out there? Are we showing our putting our best foot forward, showing our subject matter expertise that we do have by putting out articles, writing blogs, but putting out content that is important and valuable that their audience can actually find.
But there is an emphasis on it's got to be instructional, informational, how to use, how to install, rather than just my company's great, we make great products, and everything that you'll get from us will make you money. You know,
Well,
there's a
right,
lot
yeah.
of empty content out there.
For sure. And I think that this also shows that people are already growing pretty quickly wise to like, what is AI generated? I think we already can kind of see it.
Oh, yeah.
You know, there's
Yeah.
certain phrases and you can tell, I mean, there's mistakes in there and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think there's, you know, if companies think that they can take the easy way out and just
Yeah.
have Chat GPT write a blog for them or something
Yeah.
like that, you know, at your own risk, man. Like that is a very, I don't know, not a great strategy in my opinion.
Yeah, check the formatting. If you're going to have an AI generated email, read it once before you hit send. So for me, it was that critical operational needs like asset aging and technology obsolescence are the primary drivers for initiating these major purchasing processes, right? What I took out of it, 59% of manufacturers say that old equipment is the top reason they start shopping. And Jeff, this is from that same part of the study that you were checking out. 53% said it's because their equipment is no longer compliant, like you mentioned. So my biggest takeaway is that when it comes to marketing, you got to kind of focus on how easily your solution can replace this obsolete equipment. And this was particularly top of mind for me because I don't know if you guys remember a couple of weeks ago how I mentioned that, we check recalls a lot and I had a faucet that was being recalled because of lead. Well, after we got it out and we checked the little label inside the little tube, turns out, no, ours was actually the real one, not the knockoff from Amazon that contained lead. So we paid like hundreds of dollars to replace something that wasn't broken. But just to be sure, I Googled the part number, and the part number actually triggered a search from a competitive faucet manufacturer to a site that was like safety alerts. And it was like this page that kind of said 90% of all off-brand faucets tested contain lead or other toxic chemicals. See if you're at risk. And it was wild to me because they had basically dedicated all this SEO into not just their products and services, but the products, services, and components that their products can replace. And I thought it was wild to me. Just like not the manufacturer or the faucet came up first. A competitor's page that said, you might be at risk. So I don't know. That was just showed me a company that was a little bit further than the others when it came to that sort of SEO strategy.
I mean, it reinforces the need to find out non-biased sources of critical information, like a podcast that talks about critical issues in manufacturing.
Perhaps a podcast that's rooted in news and other information provided on a daily basis. I mean, maybe. Who knows? Who are we to say? All right, our next most popular story. Ukrainian drone startup revolutionizes defense innovation. The images from this are incredible. Workers manufacturing, assembling, and inspecting Flamingo cruise missiles and combat drones at a Firepoint secret factory in Ukraine. The Associated Press recently gained an exclusive look inside one of Firepoint's dozens of covert factories. They were in a sprawling warehouse, rock music blasted in the background, checking out exploding drones that can travel nearly 1,000 miles. They're even working on medium-range cruise missiles that can go nearly 1,900 miles and could be ready to scale production by the end of the year. The AP says Ukraine is becoming the, quote, Silicon Valley of defense. Soon after Russia's invasion, hundreds of defense companies kind of sprouted up overnight. The country is now buying about $10 billion in weapons every year from domestic manufacturers. Officials say the industry has the capacity to triple that amount and then eventually sell to allies at some point. Firepoint kind of grew out of necessity after Russia's full-scale invasion back in 2022. Western countries won't grant access to longer-range weapons, so a group of close friends set out to make their own. Firepoint's founders didn't know defense. They knew construction, they knew game design, and they knew architecture. Still, they came up with a novel drone design that could fly further and strike with greater precision than most products already on the market. The company makes roughly 100 drones per day at a cost of about $55,000 a piece. Jeff, your thoughts on how desperation leads to innovation and the birth of a new Silicon Valley of defense?
Well, first of all, I don't think this is a new Silicon Valley. I mean, there was a lot of this innovation and technological development taking place in Ukraine long before. That's why Putin's always wanted it. In addition to the agricultural resources and the mining resources, there was always a lot of positive development going on here. So it does reinforce that. And when you look at how they were able to scale up with a goal of being 30 of these a month, and now they're producing over 100.
100 a day.
100 a day. Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And it does, once we're, hopefully, at some point when we're past this war, what types of arms race does this sort of set up?
Mm-hmm.
Because this is taking the place of a lot of other developments we talked about. There's a lot of concern over intercontinental ballistic missiles, hypersonic weapon developments. Now we're looking at these drones that can be programmed, produced very rapidly. Are we going to have to be worried about restrictions or the numbers of these types or the tonnage of explosives that they can carry? All of these types of things. It's going to create a new era, really, of how we regulate military operations and development, I think. It's going to be very interesting to see where this goes from here, because right now this is where it's focused. You saw the Russians also getting stuff from Iran. That's kind of where they stole some of the I don't even think they reverse engineered or anything like that, but that's where they borrowed some of the design concepts.
Yeah.
I thought it was also very interesting that they took game design elements and incorporated that into these missiles or these drones.
Yeah.
Thank you. So a lot of different factors at play here, and again, it reinforces too why really just the spirit of the Ukrainian people, how resilient they are, and how they've been able to scale this up in the middle of a war.
Yeah. No, I mean, one of the sad realities of war, right, is that, desperation leads to innovation. We've seen this in any war, any conflict, anywhere on Earth. Anna, so when you look at these FP1 exploding drones, they were described as looking more like hastily made science projects than something that would actually roll off of a traditional production line at some of the world's biggest defense contractors. One of the workers said, when they were creating the design, they removed unneeded, flashy, glittery stuff. And do you think, what are your thoughts on sort of this idea of defense or desperation leading to innovation? And, is there anything that maybe when we're talking about defense spending that we could maybe learn from taking out some of the unneeded, flashy, glittery stuff to, maybe rein in that side of the budget?
Yeah. I think those are both really important issues when you look at this story. Of course, watching them innovate out of necessity, that's on full display here, but they don't really have a choice, right? And I know you talked about the longstanding history of innovation in this region. Definitely so. But these founders, obviously we don't know who they are, but they said they don't have a background in defense at all. This just kind of started in 2021. And they hit the ground running. And you think about how these are devices, just the devices alone are probably dangerous to work with, right, to produce. But then not to mention the fact that these factories are covert. They said that often to keep them kind of under wraps, they put them in commercial areas where you would not expect a factory to be.
Okay.
But obviously, that if the Russians were to find out where these were, they would be targets of attacks because, they're producing weapons. So in a number of ways, these folks are putting their lives on the line just to work there, which is pretty incredible and just humbling to see that take place because they're addressing these truly existential threats. Yeah,
it's truly kill or be killed.
It is. But yes, the other thing that stood out to me, and you mentioned it as well, is this cost aspect, this taking out all the flashy, glittery stuff. I also was drawn to that quote about flashy, glittery stuff. But, you think about from our vantage point in the U.S. what the defense industry looks like here, and it is obviously very regulated, very methodical. You've got ITAR, you've got tons of regulations around it, but it's also extraordinarily costly. And I do think that obviously not at the expense of safety, but is there a page that we could take from this from our own perspective? Because it's easy to say that when it comes to our defense budget, it's worth it, or, this is just, it is what it is. I think people do look at it that way, like, well, it's defense.
Keep America
what do you
safe.
do? What do you do? But there's also a lot of things that we don't spend money on because we spend so much money on defense.
Yeah.
So, I mean, is there a way we could be doing it better?
Yeah.
By maybe learning a thing or two, but you wonder like, how does that...
Yeah, how do you implement that?
Information trade take place?
Yeah.
Or like, does it ever take place?
Yeah, just like, hey, it looks really nice, but does it need to be, does the finish on it need to be so shiny and well painted if it is a one-use only exploding drone?
Right.
Or exploding projectile.
And maybe they have like a high failure rate on these. We really don't know. You know, maybe one of them blows up on the line every 10 days. You don't know. Yeah. So there could be some reasons why they've gotten the costs down so low, and those are not reasons we want to incorporate into our process. But a conversation, if that could ever take place, I think would be beneficial.
Well, and just given the nature of the situation where, they're making them so quickly, but they're out the door just as fast. They just need to make as many as they can as fast as they can. They don't have, the benefit of time.
Right.
And but I don't know. It was a very, I thought it was a very poignant and very incredible look into this side of the war that you normally don't get to see. And it was great that the Associated Press was able to get access to it and tell their side of the story. Because sometimes I feel like when you're talking in generalities about this war, these are the kinds of things that kind of get lost when you're just taking a surface level look. Mm-hmm. All right. Our next most popular story this week. Oh, Doug says, welcome back, Jeff. How were the fish?
Good. It was very good. Yeah. Got a nice, different, lot of variety. And we did get rained out one day, but it was still great.
Okay. Well,
thanks, Doug.
Yeah. Good to hear from you, Doug.
Hey, Doug, I'm back too.
Doug says, he doesn't, it's not on there, but he also says hi. Anna.
Okay. Hi.
Yeah. Our perfect segue to our next story. AirBorn closing facility as contract manufacturing deemed, quote, no longer viable. AirBorn is a designer and manufacturer of interconnect solutions for industrial, defense, aerospace, and medical applications. A little more than a week ago, AirBorn announced plans to close its facility in Taunton, Massachusetts. According to the Warren report, some 86 workers are going to be laid off by next year. The factory primarily focuses on contract manufacturing, which, according to Mass Live, AirBorn considers, quote, no longer viable for the business. Some employees might stay on for up to 60 days after the shutdown to help close up shop as operations are relocated to other facilities. The news comes less than a year after AirBorn was acquired by Molex. Jeff, are you surprised to hear the terms contract manufacturing and no longer viable in the same sentence?
Yes, at first I definitely was. And I think you have to look at this one a little bit beneath the surface because there's a lot of different factors and we don't know. This could be something as simple as there's redundancies. They were able to absorb it at some of their other factories here in the U.S. and it was that straightforward of an economic decision.
Yeah.
However, when you start looking at contract manufacturing here in the United States, overall, it's extremely healthy. I mean, a lot of places are projecting double-figure growth over the next 10 years. But I think that's a little bit misleading because I think a lot of that is coming in pharmaceuticals and food. Mm-hmm. But so when you look at more durable goods manufacturing, as we've talked about a lot, things have changed dramatically in terms of just-in-time inventory models coming into play, which is where contract manufacturing can play a big role in helping companies save money.
Yeah.
Especially with some of these markets that we're talking about here. Aerospace, defense, medical, typically known for shorter runs, higher cost type of products.
Yeah.
Well, now we're living in this age of shorter lifespans for products, shorter product lifespans, quicker turnarounds. Manufacturers are used to producing shorter runs of products. There isn't a lot of inventory necessarily going into place. So some of the benefits of contract manufacturing in these particular areas are diminished. So you can also see that playing a role. Tariffs are also playing an impact. When you look at sourcing a lot of these raw materials, it's expensive. So maybe it makes more sense to bring more of that in-house.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of underlying factors that can definitely play a role here once you take a closer look. But yeah, at first I was extremely surprised because when you look at industrial being one of their biggest markets, that's right where we live with contract manufacturing, those huge quantities that can be put out. So it was an interesting development, but I think the impact overall for the company will be somewhat minimized because of those other facilities. You feel bad for those 86 people, I believe it was. I mean, we never want to celebrate that.
Yeah.
But again, this may have just been in response to a lot of different economic conditions and sort of softening the blow as much as you could for the company as a whole.
For me, it looked like from the start that Molex was very forthright as to what they wanted. They wanted the company's aerospace and defense business and not much else. And like when you even look at the original press releases in terms of what they were going to use and how they were going to spin it into a new division, it was defense and aerospace, and then AirBorn kind of had everything else. I don't know if you saw the same thing. What are some of the reasons that you think they might be shuttering this facility? Is it just as simple as like, hey, we don't want this part of the business?
Yeah, I mean, it could be. That happens often when you see a big company take over a smaller brand. I mean, if you look at the shift in fortunes for AirBorn workers in the last year, they went from working for a relatively small outfit of like 1,600 employees. It was an ESOP, employee-owned company. And then suddenly they're bought by this, massive company with a $7 billion market cap, Molex, and buckle up. Like then you're kind of at the whim. I mean, within a year to see some of these workers start to lose their jobs because they're streamlining.
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, it's a little bit expected in that case. I think Jeff brought up a lot of good points. I think you are looking at a product that is intensively involves metals. And so as prices go up, what does that do to your margin on contract manufacturing? Maybe it's just not viable, as they say.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that's possible is that Molex is just, sometimes you buy a company just to kneecap your competitors, and maybe they're doing that as well.
Yeah.
They're just trying to keep, like you said, keep the technology in-house, the production capabilities in-house. And if you can make things harder or more expensive from somebody else that's in your industry that's maybe buying from AirBorn now, then maybe that's worth it to them.
I think the other thing to consider is that when we do see these types of deals happen, right, like they buy an entire company because they want a piece and they don't want the rest, there's still value in the rest. And we've seen plenty of instances where former employees or other companies, outside investors, have picked up that piece and kind of brought that facility back online. And I mean, given the size of the operation, that was why it kind of stood out to me, because it seemed manageable, that if it truly was like, hey, we just don't want this piece of the business, everything, that infrastructure is in place, those employees are still there. So there is potential that it could come back online under new ownership. A lot of variables there, but that's just one thing that we've seen in these sort of situations where like a company's like, no, I'm going to buy all of you because I want this and I don't want that. And there's still, especially for a small business owner, that could be very lucrative. I don't know. I know that is like the glass is like more than half full. It's like 80% full perspective on that one. But I mean, we've seen it before.
Well, and there is a specialization here that these employees own, that this business understands. So there is something to that. I would agree, just in terms of the category or the market that they're in.
Yeah, I mean, we did the story like back in March where it was like a company that manufactured like the models that are used for wind tunnel testing, right? And another company came up and bought this one particular company that was struggling just because it was a small operation. They knew how to do it, so they could bring it back online and have all those kind of workers kind of come back. And so it's, I don't know. I know that it's a pie in the sky look at it, but I don't know. Stranger things have happened. All right, our next. Oh, Doug says hi, Anna.
Hi, Doug.
He wants to make sure. All right. Our next most popular story this week. 6 people were found dead at a Colorado dairy. Authorities suspect an accident involving a gas exposure. So last week, an accident at a dairy in rural Colorado killed 6 people. Crews recovered the bodies from a confined space at the Prospect Valley Dairy, which is about an hour northeast of Denver. The industrial accident was traced to gas exposure. The 6 workers included a 50-year-old father and his 2 sons, who were 17 and 29 years old, as well as a 36-year-old that was one of their in-laws. According to a report from the Bullvine, a trade publication for professionals in the dairy breeding industry, this accident is, quote, the worst confined space tragedy our industry has ever seen. They say a contractor was performing routine maintenance on the underground manure pit, work that had been ongoing throughout the day without any problem. Local news said the worker may have accidentally activated a valve or pump, possibly with his phone, while doing end-of-day tasks. The hydrogen sulfide released instantaneously, and this worker collapsed immediately. Now, despite an on-site supervisor screaming warnings not to go into the space, 5 coworkers rushed in to save their coworker, and they knew the danger, but they went anyway. Anna, this is a harrowing tragedy that kind of puts a spotlight on these safety problems that we have seen before in terms of safety when it comes to gas leaks, and also having sort of safety procedures in place for when you want to go in and be a hero and you're sometimes stopped.
Yeah, it was just a really obviously very sad story, especially when you consider too that 4 of these people who passed were from the same family. Apparently the family members worked on a machinery repair business. So they were outside contractors basically on this farm doing repair work. They worked at various dairies in the area. When we first ran this story, there wasn't a lot of information available. So we didn't know right away what had caused this. And so I was looking into it before we learned that this pump or valve may have accidentally been activated. There were all these other articles that were talking about how hydrogen sulfide, which were the gas that they were exposed to, how almost easily you can be exposed to it in multiple ways. So in this case, it was a machinery failure or an activation of something unintentionally. Apparently, hydrogen sulfide also occurs naturally in crude petroleum, natural gas, and is also produced from decomposing manure. So they say that a low dose of that can cause some mild irritation and respiratory problems, but large amounts in a confined area can actually become deadly very quickly. So the Greeley Tribune, which is a local news source, pointed out that the incident in Weld County came just a year after a tragedy at a sugar plant in Fort Morgan, Colorado, where 1 person died and 4 others were hospitalized after being exposed to hydrogen sulfide gas. Once again, they were performing routine maintenance. They were unexpectedly exposed to naturally occurring hydrogen sulfide. It was frustrating to read all this because, not only are there multiple ways that you can be exposed to this on a farm or at this sugar plant where it occurred,
other industrial
or oil
facilities.
And gas. Many different applications. But the fact that this person could accidentally trigger this leak without even knowing on their phone, that was really hard to read, right? And you expect that people are going to be trained, I guess, when they're working in these potentially dangerous environments, and that they would know that these are risks. But we know from our experience on this panel that that's not the case. Many times it's not the case. And so if this is something that occurred and was triggered by a contractor completely by accident, that's a massive problem. That is like an inexcusable problem that there's no safeguards there to prevent that from happening. And just probably the knowledge of not knowing that was the kind of risk that they were in when they were there. So I don't know what the solution is, but really, really disappointing to see this.
Well, I think part of the solution is the technology that is available, because we have seen this time and again in terms of cleaning tanks, other applications where people are unknowingly exposed to some sort of contaminant. Jeff, when you look at this, it is kind of everything had to go perfectly wrong, and it really did. But I do think that it kind of is a testament to those coworkers who saw a worker in trouble and ran to help, in terms of their character, I guess.
Yeah, it hit home for me because you can see this. I grew up in a dairy farming community. You can see this happening. Those other individuals just running in there, not thinking about themselves, but in this case, their family member. It brought a couple of things to mind. First of all, we look at how agriculture and farming has evolved and transformed, and now we've got fewer family-owned farms and more corporate run. entities. And that's when you look at this particular location, it's got two different physical locations combined. There's almost 15,000 cows. So when we look at these manure pits, for those who might be thinking about a family farm, again, that your buddy grew up on or you helped with growing up, it's not like that. This stuff is going into a tank where it's basically mixed up and anaerobically digested and then used to put on the fields.
Yeah.
We're used to cleaning out pens, and that goes right on the fields and the manure spreader and everything else. So this is a much different deal. And as we evolve, we talk a lot about this new technology that's available. We get excited about stuff like electric tractors and autonomous farming implements that can go out and take care of it. And we can get all this data and provide the ideal soil and fertilizer and pesticide applications and all of this. We can't forget this stuff too. Not to beat on the blocking and tackling, but this is a real basic thing here.
Yeah.
Whether this almost sounds like a lockout tagout equivalent safety situation.
Yeah.
Where there was something that either was not paid attention to that should have, that allowed this valve to release this gas. And again, just to offer some kind of understanding, this hit so hard, this individual, there was no chance to react.
Yeah.
And a part of this too is when there is a slower leak, eventually that rotten egg smell, the way that this hydrogen sulfide attacks your senses, it takes that away. So then you can't even smell it to react properly.
Yeah.
Which could have also been part. We'll learn more as OSHA investigates and we find out more about this. But again, we talk about all this technology in agriculture. According to Bullvine.com, that same source, these types of monitoring systems are like $300.
Yeah.
You can get apps for your phone to help identify a lot of these gas leaks. So we're talking about technology implementation hurdles, not cost hurdles.
Yeah.
And some of this just comes down to taking a little bit more time and realizing, okay, this is not a traditional farming environment. There's 8,000 cows here. I'm dealing with an anaerobic digester to treat this manure. We need to elevate our approach and everything else. So horrible tragedy. These folks were trying to be heroes, and just a horrible outcome.
No, I because I couldn't really say it any better, I was just going to take it from the Bullvine. So the Bullvine said this was heroism that ended in heartbreak, not employer failure. The supervisor continued trying to prevent more tragedy. The supervisor actually stopped firefighters from entering and even prevented the dairy owner himself from going into the pit. Their report says this wasn't negligence. This was somebody who was desperately trying to prevent more deaths while watching this kind of horrific situation unfold. I thought this quote was the most important takeaway from this entire story. That impulse to help underscores why systematic. I'm just butchering it. That impulse to help underscores why systematic safety protocols exist to override our natural helping instincts with procedures that actually save lives. And I think that is the biggest takeaway that you can have from this story. All right, our next most popular story this week. Our most popular story this week, actually. This church is being moved before a mine swallows the entire town. So, the Kiruna Church in Sweden is being moved this week. It's all part of an entire town's relocation. But why, you might ask, does an entire town need to move? Well, the world's largest underground iron ore mine is threatening to swallow it up. The church was originally a gift from LKAB, a state-owned mining company. This mine dates back to 1910. The church dates back to 1912. As the mine expanded deeper underground, residents started seeing some weird aberrations, like cracks in buildings and on the roads. Not good. In order to reach a new depth of 4,478 feet and to prevent Kiruna from being swallowed up, officials started moving buildings to a new downtown at a safe distance from the mine. This all started about 21 years ago in 2004. As of July, 25 buildings had been lifted onto beams and wheeled east. 16 of those buildings, including this church, remain. At approximately 131 feet wide, weighing 741 tons, this church needed a little extra. Engineers, for example, had to widen a major road from 9 meters to 24 meters, and they had to dismantle a viaduct to make way. A driver then used a large control box to pilot this church along the route, and it's going to take it about 12 hours. Now, it's going to take so long, or it took so long, because it's moving between 0.31 and 0.93 miles per hour, not going quick. LKAB would not say how much it has cost the mining company. Jeff, there are many parts of this story that are pretty incredible. What do you find? Where do you want to start? Do you want to start with the mine swallowing an entire town, or this sort of feat of engineering in terms of moving the entire town, hopefully far enough away?
I think it's just the symbiotic relationship between this mine and this town. It's pretty remarkable when you look at the fact that folks are the mining company said, we got to do this. The company said, okay, we're going to move. And we're looking at a town of about 18,000 people. There's like 6,000 homes they're looking at moving here. All of these buildings are also being moved at the tab of the mining company. It's going to cost them like somewhere near $2 billion to do all of this. And it's just amazing to me that there's nobody going, well, you should have done this better, or why'd you build here, or what are we doing? It's just, this is what we have to do, and this is what we're going to do. Yeah. Just an interdependence there. And part of this 100-year plan also that Kiruna, am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, Kiruna
has come up with. This 100-year plan is basically to try to also figure out a way to not be so economically dependent on this mine going forward. So it'll be interesting to see how things play out over the course of this whole dynamic where you're moving an entire town like 2 miles. Just amazing in terms from an engineering perspective, but also from a sociological perspective in terms of how does this affect people that they did this, and this is the reason why. Now, just to offer a little perspective, this mine, I think it's provides something like 80% of Europe's iron ore or something. It's crazy in terms of what they get out of here. So yeah, just like I said, the whole interdependence on these two entities is really kind of mind-blowing. I
got to say, that's an incredible unintentional pun. The whole perspective, it was good. It was really good.
Did not think about that.
It was incredible. Did you find it interesting that, well, I guess, if that's where the main resource comes from, that they're just like, no, we know it's going to swallow the town and we're going to keep digging. So we got to move the town. Like that's weird math, right? Like, I guess pick your poison.
It feels like there was no debate or plot. I'm sure there was. Yeah. Okay? I'm sure they just didn't go, let's just do it.
You know what?
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm sure there was debate about it, but the efficiency, I guess, that they've been able to move and do this is incredible.
Yeah. Anna, we sometimes see this. We've seen this with the mining industry. We've seen this with the fracking industry. Like, when you go into the earth and you remove resources, there's something that's going to sometimes fill that void.
Weird stuff happens. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I found this story to be incredibly troubling. I didn't enjoy it at all. Yeah. I mean, that's a really cool old church. Yeah. But
and they saved it.
I'm not like watching this with fascination. Like it's like a really fun feature story. I was just like, just because of the disruption that's being caused by this. And by the way, like if you Google mine swallows and then just leave it. Yeah. Mine swallows ... Yeah. A lot of stories.
It's swallowed a lot of things.
Yeah. There's so many things that mines have swallowed. So I found a story about, I had never heard this, and apparently it's considered one of the worst man-made natural disasters to have taken place in U.S. history. Maybe you guys are aware of it, but there was a lake in Louisiana, and it was built, underneath it was a salt mine, and they were in the lake drilling for oil. Okay. As you would do. Yeah. And accidentally pierced the salt mine.
Went into the mine? Yeah.
And then the lake just went away. They just got sucked into the salt mine and everything that was in the lake. And so it was like this actually massive tragedy because there were boats and, it was just a disaster. Yeah. And then, so that happened. And then I saw in 2022 in Chile, regulators filed charges against the mining company because a sinkhole opened up and diverted like over 1 million cubic meters of water from an aquifer and into this like created this huge 120 foot in diameter sinkhole and irreparable environmental damage, they said. An abandoned mine shaft collapsed under Highway I-80 in New Jersey last year. There was like so many of these stories, like more than I could even count.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. I mean, I've heard of sinkholes, I guess, but I didn't realize how much like collateral damage in terms of things getting sucked up and swallowed. That is
my worst nightmare.
Taking place because of the mining industry.
Yeah. No, the sinkhole, I know we've talked about it before.
No, I know we have, but yeah, so like if you want worse dreams.
Yeah. I mean, no, like the hair is already up on my neck. I get it. It's just like now I'm going to go through the rest of the podcast and fear that the studio will be swallowed whole.
Is there a mine under here? I don't know.
Well, I think that's part of the issue, right? Like they don't know. Like,
yeah.
It is amazing to me how much we try to think that we have. It's kind of like sometimes you get this like this belief in the medical industry that they got it like almost figured out, and you don't realize that they're just starting to get it. You know, same thing with like civil engineering, right? Just like, no. Obviously, they did their due diligence in making this one big lake into 3 tiny lakes, and there's no way that it would all collapse into itself and destroy everything in the path. I think that it's sometimes this like hubris that no, we crunch the numbers and it's going to be fine. And then we find out that, you know, the real brutality of nature, you know, in terms of what's going to happen as the equal and opposite reaction. It was not whole perspective. It was whole dynamic. It was better. I thought that it's one of the things, why do you move a building, right? Like, because sometimes it has to be important, right, to go under this multi-billion-dollar effort to move it and not just rebuild it, right? So this is a very important building to the community, this church in particular. In 2001, the Swedish people voted this wooden church the, quote, best building of all time. The best building of all time built before 1950. So I guess there have been better buildings built afterwards. They're like, no, but in this like cross section is really great. So I don't know if you guys saw this part, but the church was moved over Tuesday and Wednesday with a pause each day for fika, which was the traditional Swedish afternoon coffee break. Are you familiar with this, Anna?
No.
The fika? So
fika.
Huh?
I like it though.
Oh, yeah, it sounds great. So fika is this Swedish tradition centered on taking a deliberate pause from the day to socialize and enjoy a hot beverage and a pastry. So it typically...
And a pastry
around 10 a.m. and 3 p.m.
We are starting this here.
It's twice a day?
It's like they said typically around 10 a.m. and 3 p.m., you know, the town stops, or I think the country stops, and they're just like, hey, coffee and a cruller?
Let's do FICA at work.
Agreed.
I say we do FICA Friday.
We are implementing
I mean, we're here at 10 and 3.
Yeah, let's do FICA Friday tomorrow.
Do it 2 times.
If you do coffee, I'm going to do the pastries. If that's cool. You guys good? I got to leave right now. No. All right. I also want to note the logistics company. We're actually working on a follow-up feature on this Mamoet. Mamoet put in more than 1,000 hours of planning into just moving the church. And some incredible work went into that. So look for the follow-up, come to IAN.com. But I think both points are very warranted, right? Like 1, incredible feat of engineering. 2, hey, let's be careful when we start digging holes in the earth because it's going to have like far-reaching ramifications. So you get your due, man.
Yeah, we're on different sides of this one.
Yeah, like perfectly split. All right, well, before we jump into, in case you missed it, the story is not as popular on the website, but still stand to make a big impact on the industry going forward. We have another word from this week's sponsor, Hexagon. This week's episode is brought to you by Hexagon. Quickly addressing and eliminating known problems in your facility can save you from a damaged reputation, fines, or even an unplanned shutdown. One of the most effective ways to resolve an issue is by identifying its root cause. That is achieved by conducting a root cause analysis. However, it's essential to note that a root cause analysis done incorrectly can waste considerable time and money. A new paper from Hexagon, 6 Mistakes Manufacturers Make When Trying to Fix an Issue, gives you 6 common yet critical mistakes you need to avoid. So download the paper right now. You can catch a link to it in the body copy as well as in the live chat. Okay. In case you missed it, story's not as popular on the site, but could make a big impact on the industry going forward. I'll go first because we return to our old friend, the toilet beat. We got to make sure that we cover toilets and toilet production well in this part of town. We got it. Ready, Jeff?
Let's roll.
What's happening with toilets right now?
All right. So Toto is going to expand U.S. toilet production, leaning heavily on automation to make these luxury Loos. Toto USA last week opened a $224 million manufacturing facility in Morrow, Georgia, reshoring production of high-end one-piece toilets from the Toto Group's plants in Asia. When I when I wrote high-end one-piece toilets, I interpreted that as not my toilets. The company said it made the move to increase U.S.-based luxury toilet production capacity by 150% because it needs to meet rising demand. The expansion will raise Toto's production capacity in the Americas to some 1 million toilets annually across its plants in Morrow, Lakewood, and in its Mexico plants. As Toto faces extended lead times, even from its own plants, it hopes more regional U.S. production will ensure more timely delivery and unclog its North American supply chain. Now, I chose this story because I thought this was, an interesting reshoring story when we talk about bringing some of this business over to the U.S. But I also found it incredible that it was doing it because it was its Asian counterparts that couldn't keep up and deliver. It's like, hey, you guys are all working together. You know what you need. And they're like, you know what? We can't do it. Just we're moving more production to Georgia. The other part of this that really I encourage you to check out the story and kind of read a little bit more about the advanced manufacturing technologies going into this place, because they include a tank bonding robot, which is the first of its kind at any Toto Group plant that positions and bonds the tanks to the bowls for these one-piece toilets. They use 34 advanced robots that streamline everything from molding to finishing, 6 self-driving AGVs that carry 3 toilets each between molding, drying, glazing, and firing over approximately 44 different yards. I thought it was an incredible story. Like, you think, like, when it comes to toilets, you don't think advanced manufacturing. You don't think about reshoring toilet production to the United States. And the other thing was that they have these incredible kilns that are going to be put in the next 2 years that are 23% more efficient. And when it comes to something, I figured that we had kilns pretty well figured out by now. We've been firing clay for a while. But I don't know if you had a chance to check out this story, Jeff, but what did you think about when you saw Toto USA moving some of the company's own business to the U.S.?
I mean, it seems to make sense. Yeah. I had no idea the market for luxury toilets was this big.
1 million?
Man, I thought it was a pretty simple operation in terms of what you're looking for there. So I was blown away by the fact that it was this large, that it would warrant this type of operation, and that this type of technology was in place for this type of company. Kudos to them, obviously, for making those investments and finding the efficiencies, because obviously these are expensive. Mm-hmm. So anything they can do to limit things on a production cost, that helps their margin even more. So, and I'm guessing I did not look in advance in terms of the luxury toilet market. Yeah. But I'm guessing the U.S. is pretty high in terms of consumption rates. So it makes sense for them to get closer to their home market. And this, talk about custom manufacturing as well. Yeah. This stuff, where else would you use this type of robot? Yeah.
Incredible. It's how when you're at IMTS and you see these application work cells and they're putting any kind of crazy thing together, because really you just need to tell them what you need to build with the robot and they'll figure out how it works and build the system around what you're trying to make. Did you ever imagine that, that North America would need 1 million luxury toilets a year?
I'm still trying to figure out what makes it a luxury toilet.
It flushes reliably every time. That's what I determine to be luxury.
It's it's got like a lot of stars.
Okay. This is no 4.5-star toilet.
Yeah, and I don't really know why. I mean, it's a couple $100 more than your average, like, Home Depot store brand or like a Loos toilet.
Does it have like,
But why?
if you put your phone on the back tank, it charges it wirelessly?
No, none of that.
Oh,
It's
no?
like,
Okay, it's not like a bell and whistle thing. It's just a good sitter?
First of all, I've been looking at toilet photos for a while since you started talking
Yeah.
and trying to understand, what the point of the one piece is.
Yeah.
It just, like, less to clean.
I don't, I mean, again, as likely not the target market, maybe I'll do a little bit further investigation into this one-piece design and why it is so much better than...
Just so you can gigacast it? It's
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah.
all right. I mean, I guess I don't think I've ever like I could not tell you. I could not pick my toilet out of a lineup, I should say.
That's right. There's no distinguishing tattoos or marks.
No, so I can't imagine that I would be lured in by this, but maybe being built by a robot is cool.
I would like to give credit to the people who on the video, instead of commenting about, the technology, the advanced manufacturing or the jobs, because it's like 420 jobs or something. It was just toilet emojis and GIFs. So
nice.
I mean, obviously I knew those were out there, but thank you for sharing. It's always a good opportunity to learn about what's new in the emoji and a GIF range game. Anna, what's here in case you missed it this week?
I chose a story about paper.
We're doing like two groundbreaking technologies.
Yeah.
Toilets and paper.
Stuff you need.
Mm-hmm.
The story is about International Paper closing 2 mills in Georgia and cutting 1,100 jobs. I was kind of surprised that this wasn't a top story this week. So I grabbed it just because I think the implications when it comes to pulp and paper are just, there's kind of some weird stuff going on. So for background, International Paper said it's closing 2 mills in Georgia, including one that has been a cornerstone of Savannah's economy for 90 years. So they're going to stop making cardboard in Savannah and Riceboro, which is also in Georgia, by the end of September. They say they're going to lay off 800 employees in Savannah, 300 in Riceboro. I selected this story because this brings the number of significant mill closures in the last year to more than a dozen in the United States. Wow. These are all like container board and paperboard plants. It sounds like there has been an oversupply for kind of a long time. So this has been a somewhat expected effort to rebalance the market. But the other impacting factors are very likely energy issues, labor issues, consumer behavior, things like that. Old plants that just need to be retired. Mm-hmm. That aren't really keeping up with the demands of manufacturing. So all those factors being involved, I just think it's a story to keep an eye on when you consider how e-commerce hungry everyone is in the United States, and if we're shutting down plants that produce packaging materials, what that might mean for costs when we're already looking at more cost increase from tariffs potentially coming down the line. Are we going to be paying more for even the boxes that those come shipped in? Very possible in the coming months. So something to be watching in the year, and see if any more of this takes place as a rebalancing that will probably impact consumers.
Well, so looking into, this story kind of broke on Monday, and a lot of times when we're putting together our news and newsletters, right, we get a lot of feedback as to like, why do you focus on negative news versus good news, right? So this story ran with, there were 2 featured stories. It was this, and that was the Wistron story, where it was going to create that they're working on a $500 billion AI manufacturing effort with NVIDIA, right? Mm-hmm. Or NVIDIA. And so there's this choice, right? Electronics giant to build AI supercomputer factories in Texas. Great news, right? Like $500 billion. Or International Paper closing and 1,100 people losing jobs. Don't want to be doom and gloom, but you know what? Sometimes you make choices to like have the sunny story, and then neither of them wind up getting read. But But I'm over it. No, Jeff, when you look at this story, I mean, we still work in a business that also deals in paper, and we've seen the paper industry continue to contract. Do you anticipate seeing more news like this when it comes to paper mills closing?
I hope not.
Yeah.
But I think it hit home for two reasons. Number one, we're not far from the Fox Valley here in Wisconsin. Huge paper milling and production area. So this definitely registers here in Wisconsin pretty strongly. The other thing that it really kind of made me think of is some of the stuff that was going on in the textile industry. When you look at the southeastern part of the country, a lot of small towns really were impacted in just dramatic economic fashions when a lot of those textile mills started shutting down. Granted, that was because stuff was being sent overseas. This is more from a consumer usage perspective, but the impact could be the same. If there's not something there to pick up and replace some of these jobs in some of these factory type towns, this could have a huge impact. So what do we do then with a lot of these folks who have a very specialized skill set in getting them back into the workforce? We know there's places for them, but how do we make this match up?
What was your, in case you missed it this week?
I picked a story that definitely had an interesting headline. I was actually kind of surprised that we weren't talking about this one, but NASA wants to put a nuclear reactor on the moon by 2030.
Yeah.
So let's put aside the fact that we had the Secretary of Transportation stepping in as the NASA administrator to deliver this news. Let's put that off to the side.
Yeah.
That's another story.
They all wear a lot of hats.
Let's also put aside the fact that we're looking at introducing a volatile, sometimes difficult to control energy entity onto the moon. Something went bad up there. That could not be good. Anyway, the two big takeaways from this article were two of the bigger challenges that this would present. Number one being, in order for a nuclear reactor to work well, there needs to be a lot of water to cool it down. So on the moon, we're not so sure about. In theory, there's supposed to be a bunch of frozen water up there in a lot of these craters.
Yeah.
So the article talks about, well, if we're going to do this, we're going to need to figure out a way to understand where that is, if it's there, where it is, and how it could be sourced. The other thing that I talked about is when rockets take off and land on the moon, kicks up a bunch of debris.
Yeah.
And it shatters stuff because there's obviously no gravity there to keep it on the ground.
Yeah.
So everything it kicks up could potentially, when we're bringing in supplies to build the reactor, could kick up all this debris to damage the reactor.
Yeah.
So how do we figure these two things out? What this said to me is, forget the nuclear reactor for a minute. These are two very interesting things that in this age of looking more, let's call it pragmatically, as opposed to scientifically, at a lot of things that NASA is doing.
It's the nicest way that's ever been put.
We're looking at science here.
Yeah.
We're looking at stuff that could be a thing that leads to another thing.
Yeah.
If we're looking at ways to actually understand is the moon a livable place, and understanding if these pockets of ice and water actually exist, good to know.
Yeah.
I think just for a number of different reasons. Also, if we're going to develop materials that can withstand this type of debris being kicked up and possibly hitting stuff from as much as 1.5 miles away, also that's going to help us build not just better space buildings or spacecraft or anything else, but stuff we can use here on Earth too.
Yeah.
In terms of stronger, more reliable materials that can take a beating, whether we're talking about weird weather, whether we're talking about mines, collapsing cities, whatever the case may be, more durable construction materials. So that was my takeaway from this. There's a lot of kind of crazy conjecture in this article. I thought it was very interesting. When I say crazy, I thought it was pretty cool. But again, there's bigger takeaways here, I think, than actually trying to put a nuclear reactor on a satellite heavenly body that could definitely impact the Earth with different gravitational elements if we screwed it up.
Yeah.
So let's not think about that for right now.
How many buildings do you need to have on the moon before they're not space buildings anymore? They're just buildings.
They're just building.
I mean, could the example or could the solution be as simple as just run it at night? Because the moon is extremely cold at night. It's like minus 200.
It's cold. It's cold all the time. It's figuring out the water element to keep the temperatures right.
But I don't hate the idea of another space race or another moonshot, so to speak, so we could maybe try to all start remembering that we can build each other up rather than just trying to systemically like tear each other down and just destroy each individual tribe. I don't hate that idea. And I did really, this is right up my alley. Like they want to build a nuclear, like when they do those competitions where they have to live in a simulated Martian environment for 2 years, I'm just like all in. Let's check it out. I thought this was an incredible story. And I think we need this type of forward thinking in order to create scenarios, to create technologies that, like you said, we have no idea how we'll use them. But like the space race gave us so many things, and we don't need to tear that down. Like there is value there. Like we were talking about last week in terms of the National Science Foundation and where there is value that sometimes you don't necessarily see at a surface level. Anna, your thoughts on building a nuclear reactor on the moon, which you're obviously 100% in favor of.
Was your point earlier that you want like the astronauts of the globe to like create world peace on the International Space Station, basically?
I mean, that's a leap. But no, I was just saying that, common goal. I'm thinking I wasn't even thinking like, globally, sure, that sounds better. Almost destroyed my laptop there.
Well, just to pour a little, just to damper your enthusiasm there, part of this is also a race that we're having with China to colonize the moon.
Yeah.
So,
well, hold on. We've got to.
So we got two teams here. So
we've got to
side.
No, we got to suit a couple of masters here. All right. Like we need the reason that it's embraced by the administration, but then we also need a potential reason that other people could get on board, which again, some people could see it as another space race that, showing off, maybe let's turn that nationalism into a little bit more of national pride in terms of our engineering prowess and innovation.
Cool. Yeah, we'll just leave it up there on the moon, and then no one else can access it.
They'll ask first.
Yeah, they'll ask first,
like,
and they're not.
Use
yeah.
your reactor.
We just have to. No, it's like anything. We have to.
Hey,
be
I know
first.
you're not going to be up on the moon this weekend, but if I went up there, is that cool?
I'm sure they'll have a
Use your
shared
reactor.
calendar.
It's the same thing like when I want to use my buddy's cabin in Eagle River.
Yeah.
Just like, let me just check the calendar.
Yeah.
Family
you know
calendar.
what? I'm actually doing something else.
Yeah, I can't. You guys, we can't go up this weekend. China's up there. No, I think it's part of the race is that who gets it first, and then it's like, okay, let's all be cool now, and we can all use it.
That sounds completely believable.
Hey, we're living in times where a lot of unbelievable stuff's happening every day.
You know what else is unbelievable? 2030, which is why when I read this article, I was just like, this is never happening.
We're gonna start shipping parts up there now.
Whatever. Tell me when Project Artemis happens, because wasn't that supposed to start in like 2017?
There's no money for that.
Yeah, well, there's no money for that. Plus, we need to colonize Mars. That's like also forget the moon. We were going to Mars next, I thought.
We were until there was a brief falling out between the leading Martian advocates and the current administration. I think that got backburnered, and they're like, let's go back to the moon. We're not talking right now.
Yeah, I think we're just saying stuff to say it
at
this point.
We do a lot of that, but there's actually there's real good that could come out of this project.
And real bad.
Let's stick with the good. I was trying to not be, the negative guy this time.
Well, it's okay to be negative about a nuclear reactor on the moon.
I'm sure that they would not send that thing up there unless they knew everything. They had all their ducks in a row.
Let's get real, you guys.
Yeah,
come on.
They're going to have SOPs.
Who are you so afraid of?
Jeff, Anna's on board with this.
Clearly not.
Yeah, project manager of this thing. She's going to work with the transportation secretary.
Yep.
I just think anytime in this day and age when we're talking about doing stuff with NASA as opposed to cutting from it, I think that is, let's try to be encouraging of that.
You guys have this really great glass half full perspective on this.
You know what? It is so difficult sometimes to have those rose-colored glasses on. And with this story, I'm gonna. Because you know what? They're not on for many others right now. Well, let's jump into our final thoughts and talk about maybe we could do some sort of affirmations before we get out of here. Anna, what is your final thought this week?
So we went up north this past week, which is why I was not on the podcast panel. And it's like for me, the most relaxing place ever is just like in the woods. And, we just stayed in a cabin and we did a lot of stuff outside. I learned, however, because we took our dog up there, that the North Woods is the least relaxing place for our dog, which I felt bad about. But we got up there and turns out he has some environmental allergies that were triggered by the woods. So he was his eyes were super swollen and crusty, and then just diabolically obsessed with the deer. So there's deer everywhere in the yard, and he just stood at the window on guard that entire time. He was exhausted.
He's got to protect
barely
the family.
Slept. Yeah. And I was like, we're on vacation, friend.
You're just raising a city dog.
Yeah, so we would have to close all the blinds at night and stuff. So he would, and then put him in his crate. Normally he sleeps in our bed. We had to put him in his crate so he would sleep. Yeah. Because otherwise he would just be all over the house. And I actually felt kind of bad because we took him because we were
he's going to love it up here.
He's our dog. He's going to love it up here. We just, take a ton of walks.
Yeah.
And it was not for him. No. He's a city dog. He is.
That's fair. That's one of the, it's the fun part of having a puppy is learning all their quirks. And for better or worse, sometimes you're just oh, you don't like that, huh?
Yeah, sorry, bud.
Really? You know what? The last one loved catching a Frisbee in the water. Yeah. Didn't see that coming. My final thought this week was that, first of all, it was a huge milestone where we finally said goodbye to all the people that were at our daycare that we'd been going to for the better part of 10 years. And you just never realize, you have some of those relationships in your life that are both personal and professional, right? Where it's hey, I started every day of my work week with you, and I ended it with you guys too. And it's sometimes bittersweet to say goodbye. And it was hard. And even though none of them will ever see this, I just wanted to put it out in the universe and thank Miss Yvonne and Miss Mary for being so incredible with our kids and helping get them to 4 pretty safely, and it was just a really sweet moment. The other thing is, I would never believe that in 2 consecutive weeks, I would be talking about changing a flat tire. But so I had flat tire story part 2, but this time I thought it was going to be so much easier. And I don't know if you caught my final thought where I talked about changing a tire with such precision and ease on the interstate during rush hour. And Jeff came out on the side of just, no, you hire service. But so again, I also the one thing with bicycles is I know I can change a tire. And it has not gotten any easier. Oh my God. My kids love riding their bikes. Des blew a tire, and these tires should have gone a year ago. Completely bald. He's always going up and down stairs over rocks. I'm just all right. And then finally they're done. And so I buy 2 tires from a local bicycle shop and tubes. And I figure start with the back one because that's always the most difficult. And oh my God, is it just not any easier to get those tires off and on? And I'm thinking about how I'm on the interstate changing a tire of a car valued at tens of thousands of dollars, and I do it in 10, 15 minutes, right? But man, I need to change 2 $30 tires on a bicycle.
A kid's bike.
On a kid's bicycle. And, I do it after they go to bed. And it was one of those where Carrie kept going into the garage just going are you still in here? I'm
because that helps.
Yeah.
I love it when my wife does that too. So you're still doing this?
Yeah.
Yes. And that's so helpful for you to remind me that I'm still doing this task an hour after I thought I'd be done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You know what I like too? You seem sweaty. Just yes, I'm working weirdly hard on this.
Are you doing that right?
Yeah.
No, I'm clearly not because it's taking me much longer than anticipated. Thank you.
Guys, you're giving me so many good ideas. I can't wait to say you seem sweaty to my husband tonight.
I will say at least tools have come a long way. I have the special tools that you're supposed to use to take the tires on and off. But man, it was and we're not talking a 10-speed or something with gears I got to work with. We're just talking about a single speed BMX bike. And I was just floored by how I think that I took a little extra time because it's my kid's bike, right? I probably wouldn't have taken this long if it was my bike. But it was just, maybe we don't need to fix it.
At what point did you just Google the cost for the whole wheel?
Oh no, when I bought them, I made sure to ask the guy. I was just so how much for you to put these on? And then he told me, and I was okay, maybe see you tomorrow. But got the tires on. Took me a bit. And then, you know what, just the celebratory drink afterwards tasted that much sweeter.
There you go.
You know? Jeff, your final thought this week.
I kind of had, so I lied before. I did have a project this week. It was moving my daughter into college. We got another one coming up here. So the one thing that I realized as I was moving her into, because this is an apartment, not the dorms.
Oh.
The more things change, the more they stay the same.
Yeah.
So while things like for us, like there was one TV, you got cable.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and you had a gaming system, and there was that communal TV in the apartment. Well, now with streaming, that's not as big a deal. So people, you're on laptops or whatever, in your own room. TVs are so much cheaper and lighter and easier, all that kind of stuff. But the things that don't change in terms of the space, the carpeting, the condition of the apartment, all these types of things, the 4th or 5th generation furniture that's used.
Yeah.
It was reassuring to
Rite of
see a lot
passage.
of these things have not changed. So it was a pretty smooth move. And like I said, it was interesting to see how, that looks like in a college apartment that I would have been into.
So what is the living room the same? Is there still a communal space?
Oh, yeah,
or
without
is
a
it
doubt.
Okay.
I was actually surprised that they did have like a entertainment center kind of like set up, probably more for the Xbox or PlayStation than to watch TV or movies or anything.
So they could have background noise while they're on their phones?
Pretty much.
Yeah. Okay. No, I was curious about that too, just because everyone's on their device. But I'm glad that furniture is still being salvaged from the side of the road.
Because that was the biggest thing when they moved into the dorms. Where I'm like, well, do you need a TV? You're like, why? I've got a laptop. I've got my phone. Why do I need a TV?
Yeah.
All right.
Fine. I'll just throw this in the garbage. No, well, that's really cool, and it's wild how fast everything's going. Like,
I was gonna say, so now that you guys don't have anybody in daycare anymore?
No, that's it.
Are you guys just rich now?
I am $100 a week richer. So there's this sham called 4K school, which in some areas you have full-time 4K, which makes a lot of financial sense. In some communities, such as my own, 4K is about 2 hours a day, Monday through Thursday, and then you have to pay for wraparound care. So I'm about $100 a week richer right now. We're not ready to get off that.
You could have said no. I wasn't asking for a deep dive into your finances.
It's a fresh wound, Jeff. It's
sorry.
a fresh wound. Well, because it's like because it's not regulated, there are like seriously on the other side of town, there's full-time 4K.
I just know when my kids got out of daycare, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
This is huge. Nice. This is enormous.
This time next year. So it'll be like episode 286. We're all going to lunch.
Nice.
All the time. Because I'm just going to be flush.
We're all going to lunch.
We're all going to lunch.
What is that called in Sweden?
We're having
Finka?
Right.
like
no.
FICA. Yep. I can afford FICA tomorrow.
Sweet.
All right. All right. Well, before we get out of here, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review. Give it a thumbs up like Doug on that YouTube channel. If you want to reach any of us, you can reach us at Jeff, David, or Anna at in.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You can also subscribe to our daily newsletter. Make sure you get it delivered to your inbox first, and subscribe to us on YouTube at IN Magazine so you can join us when we go live every Thursday. All right, for Anna Wells and Jeff Ranke, I'm David Manti. This is the Today in Manufacturing podcast, and we will see you next week.